Welcome to day 565 of our Web3 journey. I'm Ed Krasenstein, here with my twin brother Brian, and we have a very special guest with us today. It's Ed Moss. You know him as Mossified on DeSo, part of the core team at DeSo. Great to have you on the show today, Ed.
First time ever, I think, right?
First time ever. And I can't I think I mentioned this to you guys all the time whenever we get on like chats that it's always weird for me to just like talk to you guys because I'm like always watching you every single morning. But now it's like I'm on the show, which is I'm like a little bit nervous. I swear like if like
I'm nervous too.
Jimmy Fallon like could call me up tomorrow and be like, come on the Tonight Show, whatever. I like wouldn't even break a sweat. Not that that would ever happen. But like now I'm just like, oh man, this is because I watch you guys every single morning.
Don't blow it, Ed. Don't blow it.
So yeah, I know. Someone is gonna play back the recording and examine every single word that I said.
So I just want to say this show's being sponsored by NFT Tech. They are an investor in DeSoFi. And for those who don't know, Ed Moss is kind of behind the marketing, right? What would you say your main position or what your main job is at DeSo?
Good question. I've dealt with imposter syndrome my whole life. And my whole thing is just like, picking up as many skills as I can to make as much impact as I can wherever I can. So I pretty much help with everything. I think the only thing I haven't done at DeSo is like write backend code. But everything else I help with. So I help on design, I help on product, I help on growth, help with strategy, help some recruiting, like just pretty much everywhere. My main thing is just like making sure the ecosystem overall is growing and doing well. And that's what we'll do, like a little fun exercise today and just kind of show you guys like the overall like marketing growth strategy, how we're kind of thinking about it, because I think, there's a lot of kind of like behind the scenes kind of thinking and like decision making that happens that doesn't always get reflected out to the community. So I think this will be like a good way to kind of showcase that. But in terms of like my role is mostly just, working with the team just to like, grow, DeSo.
Yeah, and I think that anybody that ever has time to sit down and talk to you, they leave feeling like they have so much to learn because
Yeah,
you're a wealth of knowledge about pretty much everything you talk about. And it's just like
appreciate that.
it's just so refreshing talking to you because I learn something new every time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And like, and likewise, I learned so much just from watching you guys every morning. And I tell everyone, my dream one day is to match your guys' hustle. And so you guys are top of the pedestal for me.
There's
So I
two
think
of
it's
us, though.
awesome.
There's two of us,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's easier.
I know.
You need a Brian Moss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be
it's
honest.
great.
What's funny is I've been watching you guys for so long now, and I've always had this assumption that this kind of myth that you guys would record both these episodes from the same room, and I always thought you guys just kind of like lived together. And the reason for that is because like for Brian, like I could see his whole like office, but then Ed is just like kind of like propped up, by this wall. So I always thought like you guys had like some kind of like setup going on with some like noise canceling thing, so you don't
Here's a little tour of my
overlap with each
room.
other. Nice. Is
Brian's
that the
nowhere to be seen in here.
ladder to
Hold
the
on,
moon?
it's hard. I had to move my whole monitor, so there's my
Okay, good.
printer. See, I have a printer.
Well,
Well, maybe Brian has to show his printer too.
I
yeah,
don't think I can. I think that it's too far away, but
I
there's
think I
the
just
wall.
messed
Eddie.
my
yeah.
setup up. 1 second.
No,
Well,
but
it was the recent episodes when I saw both you guys together because Brian's power was down, and I was like, wow. Now I truly believe they're not in the same room, and I know you guys have been dealing with a lot lately. So thank you guys for still creating videos every single day and sticking to your mission, and kind of just goes back to like the sort of the hustle and the grind that you guys really inspire everyone with.
I think mentally it'll just be so tough to miss a day now because we've done 564 days. I think missing one, we'd be like just so down that we just
Yeah,
try our best. But
yeah.
but I want to hear about what you're doing at DeSo and what some of the marketing plans are, because I know that when we talk to people within the protocol, a lot of them ask, so what's DeSo going to do to market? We have so many cool tools now. We have a lot of things coming out in the roadmap, but how are we going to share this knowledge and share what we're building with other people outside of DeSo?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what I'll do is I'll start a little bit high level, because I think when everyone says, what are we doing to market? There's a lot of ways that can be broken down. There are a lot of different channels, there are a lot of different audiences, and there are a lot of different sort of paths that we're taking and different things we're prioritizing at any given time. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if anyone has done this before on the show, but I'm going to share my screen and kind of do like a live kind of whiteboarding session. And you guys can just kind of, prompt me with questions or whatever. And it'll basically just give you like a high level view of like, how we think about things. And then I'll go into the specific tactical things of like what we're doing. And I think it'll just be a good way to kind of, just showcase everyone like how we're thinking about things, what we're doing, and why we're doing it.
Awesome. I love that idea.
Cool. And I will share all this. Which screen can you guys see right now?
Right now we see it's a spreadsheet, I guess you call it, or it has
cool. It's
persona.
Cool. It's not my seed phrase, right? All right, cool, perfect.
No.
All right, good. Good. Just joke. Don't put your seed phrase on your screen.
I got excited.
Yeah. Nah, not much going on there. Okay, cool. I just have a little table there just to kind of sort of like keep me on track. But what I want to do is like I want to just kind of give everyone a high level view of like all the different audiences we serve. So that's really important, because I think a lot of times people say, oh, DeSo or DeSo Foundation is not focused on end users or developers or founders and creators. And the reality is that we're kind of focused on all of them at the same time. And one way to kind of look at that is, like, let's just kind of sort of imagine them as like, glasses partially full. So one way to kind of look at that is, we actually serve a lot of different institutional, I probably spelled that wrong, investors. We actually serve a lot of different audiences. And the main thing is that, we are really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to aim for a benchmark. So let's sort of call this kind of our benchmark. And so we have like institutional investors, and I'll kind of break down all this in terms of like what we do. There's retail investors, there's end users, there's developers, there's founders, and I'll kind of break down the difference between how we think about developers and founders. There's creators, and there's one that I remembered recently before I made that chart over there, called sort of like partners, basically. So, and what is this day 500? What is it?
565.
565. So, in 565 days, we're trying to do all of this on basically on a global 24/7 and public scale, right? So let's just kind of keep that in mind. There's a lot of different sort of, it's a huge scope of like, how we're kind of trying to solve for all these different audiences. And they all have different needs at any given time. But what we're really trying to do is trying to get to like a benchmark. And there's no real structured way to kind of, measure the benchmark across everything. But in reality, the sort of picture kind of looks something like this, right? So it's like, we've done some stuff for institutional investors, and I'll break them all down. Some stuff for end users, some stuff for developers, some stuff for founders, some stuff for creators, and this one should say partners. So when we say marketing, and when we like focus on different audiences, the reality is like we're small team focused on everything at once on a giant scale. If you look at sort of like what are the different needs of all these different audiences, before we can even get to a benchmark, is like ideally we want everything to be up here, right? Or like some things to be up here, and then maybe some things are full. But it's going to be a game of like continual progress, and focus on what's the highest priority at that given time. we are all in crypto. We know things change at the blink of an eye. So you always have to kind of be extremely responsive and extremely adaptive towards what's happening in the macro side of things as well as the micro side of things within your own community. But that's the sort of goal. Is like
I guess there's no upper bound either, right? That upper bound goes on for
there isn't an upper bound. I would say there's like kind of like benchmark, and then there's like an ideal state, right? Like nothing is ideal yet, right? So like we don't have the best developer experience, right? We don't have the best founder experience. We don't have the best creator experience. But we have to start. I would say partners is just like we haven't even filled that cup yet. So there's a lot of different things that we need to do, but first we want to get to. In order to get to the ideal state, we have to get some of these things to a benchmark that we're very satisfied and very happy with. And if you look at sort of like what their intents are for institutional investors, what they're mostly looking for is just like, what is the project vision? Understand how is this differentiated? What's how is this uniquely positioned in the current market landscape today? So I can start building that long-term conviction. And institutional investors being like the sort of the larger funds who want to really invest large amounts of capital, drive the project forward. And most of their sort of wants or needs is like I want to make sure that there's a lot of clarity around the team, the mission, what makes this differentiated. So if you look at like DeSo.com, right? That's like what kind of this section really sort of focuses on, right? So like how is DeSo sort of compared against alternative layer ones in the market? And then there's like retail investors, right? Which is like kind of very similar sort of goals. Don't necessarily want to be a user. And I think in the entire blockchain space today, it's very common to buy a token or coin. It just sits in your wallet. So a lot of times people even think of these things as just like kind of like small scale investments, whereas DeSo, it's different, right? You don't just have to sit in your wallet, but you can transact with it every single day. But for retail investors, they want to be able to sort of have similar kind of goals, similar intent, but also be able to invest small amounts of capital, help spread awareness about DeSo and its mission. The cool thing right now that we're sort of seeing, we saw this happen with BigCloud, but the cool thing we're seeing now is, as sort of price is increasing, there's a lot more TikTok videos and a lot more YouTube videos that are talking about, DeSo and just kind of all these more retail investors finding it and broadcasting it to their own community. And then there's like the end users, right? So the end users, the intent is like, I'm frustrated with the current social platforms, a lot of censorship, not easy ways to monetize that. It's hard that I have to, rebuild my follower graph every single time when I move between platforms. So that's kind of, another specific group of users. And they're mostly looking to quickly sign up for DeSo, figure out sort of like, what the sort of mission is. Why is this better than the alternative centralized traditional social media world today? And start exploring the DeSo app. So if you see the improved funnel, that's basically exactly what it kind of takes you through.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of overlap between these different personas as well.
Tons of overlap. Yeah, so you'll actually see that in the wants and needs, there's a lot of sort of, duplication here. So like end users want to explore DeSo apps, so do like founders to be inspired by that. Creators also want to want more DeSo apps because they want to be able to sort of broaden out their audience and their reach. So there's a ton of overlap. And for developers, and why I kind of think about sort of why I try to break down developers and founders. For developers, for them, it's mostly I just want a very easy path to build Web3 apps that are not necessarily financial based, right? I have all these cool ideas. I want to build the next Medium. I want to build the next Reddit. I want to build the next, Patreon. But I don't want to sort of, learn, Solidity and Rust. I want an easy way to on-ramp into that. So for them, it's mostly just the, focus on developer docs, getting a node up and running, developer community support, right? I don't know a single developer out there that doesn't rely on Stack Overflow or like GitHub issues to sort of dig through answers and things like that. So, I think developer communities and support there is really important, as well as resources, right? DeSo.js, the hub, SDKs, and things like that. Whereas I sort of differentiate that with founders, and not that founders can't be developers, right? Look at, Nader, Elon Musk, all these guys are former engineers. I think Founders is one step beyond that, which is, okay, cool. Like I can have the access and the tools to build the app, but I really want to sort of, dream really big. What are the big, exciting new things that I can create in the space that hasn't really been done before, as well as like, how do I fund it appropriately? How do I build a team around it? How do I get users? So Founders is a little bit more broader, a little bit more kind of focused on just like the sort of bigger opportunities. And again, there's a lot of overlap between founders and developers. Some of the best founders in the world are former developers. So with founders, it's just, their sort of goals are more around, I want to be able to find big new ideas. And that's why if you look at like the funnel, one of the things that we try to do here, and this is just kind of experimenting, is, we try to highlight the categories. So decentralized Discord and LinkedIn and OpenSea and analytics and Zoom and decentralized Medium and all that. Just because what that does is that allows people to sort of dream big a little bit and say like, oh, cool, there's a whole new category of applications that we can build. And that's where DAO even comes into play too, right? So with a lot of founders, for them to really pursue these big ideas, another big thing is I need to actually find, pathways to get funded and actually build community around it. So for them, it's a lot of it is around exploring the DeSo apps, getting access to community, because the fact that we solved the cold start problem, you can tap into the DeSo community, which is extremely supportive and welcoming and is always helpful with feedback, is great. So having access to that is amazing. And then there's also creators. So with creators, I talked to a lot of creators, and the most common denominator for every single creator I've spoken to is I just want to do what I love for a living, right? And I'm sure you guys can kind of attest to that, right? You guys can wake up every morning and create these videos and build your community and things like that, and it probably sort of took you a long time to be able to get to that kind of stage where you can do that. There are a lot of creators today that are trying to do that, and for them, it's if you can make it super easy for them to just kind of like monetize and build their reach and own their audience, that is to me the sort of the future of the creator economy. And so for creators, a lot of them is a lot of focus for them is signing up for DeSo, clarity around their mission, exploring DeSo apps, access to community, building up their audience, things like that. So and in terms of like, and I'll get into like the kind of solutions in terms of the tactical things of like what we're doing to sort of solve for a lot of these things, pretty much like every single day. And the last one is partners. So, something you guys have talked about a lot, which is, how do we build more partnerships and more integrations? And that's something that is totally on top of mind for us. So, for partners, it's mostly just like, how do we, have more strategic relationships, between different entities and different communities, so that way we can leverage each other's, technology or reach or voice to help sort of grow that. And I think as we start to pursue the more social layer, the more cross-chain kind of strategy, that'll become very, very clear. And hopefully, I think, when the COO joins, starts to build out that side of the organization. Any questions on this stuff so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think that where DeSo differentiates itself from the vast majority of other blockchains is that the other blockchains, they mainly, the persona on these other blockchain mainly fall into two areas of retail investors and institutional investors. Whereas DeSo, we have so much more than that. So I think that a lot of people who join DeSo from the crypto space, I feel it's kind of foreign to them that there's all these people interested in the blockchain that aren't actually investors. So I think that like maybe marketing, is that something that you're considering, is that a lot of these people in crypto already don't really understand that, hey, there's actually use cases outside of just quick flipping for a quick buck.
Yeah. You touched on two really important things there. I would say one, which is we'll just be very simple and just call them other blockchains and what they prioritize. Can't type today. I chugged a coffee before this. Uh,
You're just nervous.
uh,
It's okay.
yeah. And then sort of like, you know, marketing audience. So I would say with other blockchains, it's not actually true. I think other blockchains do focus on a lot of these personas. So if you look at like Solana, for example, let's just take Solana. You could probably fit Solana into all of these categories. Like you can fit Solana here, you can fit Solana there. Solana does have end users because they have, you know, wallets and things like that, and other dApps. They have payment dApps that they're creating. They do focus on developers. They do focus on founders. They actually have their own version of DAO, which is called Nation.io. They're actually, I think they're building this in-house, I believe. But they do focus on founders, and they do focus on creators as well, like NFT artists. So like a lot of blockchains, like probably like the more mature ones, the ones that have, you know, are more attractive to, you know, and have a lot more primitives, do sort of expand the scope of audiences. But there are blockchains, layer one blockchains, that, to your point, Brian, that probably mostly just focus on like these three categories of people. So I would say there are, you know, there's some, I would say like Solana, DeSo, Ethereum probably focused on all of them. Some probably just focus on these three. So it's kind of a wide sort of spectrum. But I just want to make, you know, very clear, it's not like DeSo versus everything else in terms of like personas. I think, you know, once you're a blockchain, it's really thinking of, you know, you're really trying to build a whole new city from scratch, right? So when you build a new city from scratch, you have to do the infrastructure, you have to get the corporations have to hire the people have to build their families, the families have to build community, the communities have to sort of engage. And, you know, there's a whole sort of, you know, and then people have to move between cities. So it's no easy feat for a lot of these, you know, layer one blockchains.
How much research are you guys doing into how some of these other blockchains like Solana had marketed prior to becoming so big?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, the thing that I found is, and, you know, this is not to shit on like Solana or sort of like the DeFi space, because I think, you know, it's gonna, but I want to kind of show you the sort of perspective that sort of we have is like, you know, what you see in the DeFi space is like, there's like Ethereum, right? And then what we call like faster Ethereum. And what we found there is, and this is kind of give you sort of high level context about sort of like what happened. So last year, if you look at the sort of charts for like how Ethereum grew, most of it sort of grows like, it starts to sort of really spike and take off like around like summer or end of summer. And that's because like it had like a little inflection point with NFTs around like spring of last year, kind of around the same time like BitCloud started. And what that did is it created a whole wave of like a whole category, and it exposed a major flaw in Ethereum. So a lot of people were very excited about NFTs. They were all moving to Ethereum. But then, you know, it was around like September, maybe October, when the gas fees were like astronomical, you know. And what happened there is, you know, what most humans of human nature is going to do is like, I really like this thing, but let me go find the cheaper, faster, you know, alternative version of that. And that's kind of where this sort of faster Ethereum sort of kind of narrative started to grow. And that's kind of where, you know, Solana and Near and some of these other chains, and, you know, started to, I think Phantom's like another one, right? AVAX started to really sort of take off on that narrative, which is, you know, Ethereum is attracting a lot of sort of attention with their NFTs, but we want to find, you know, cheaper and faster versions and more scalable versions of Ethereum. And that's kind of what, you know, one way I kind of categorize is like, it's basically like comparing like, once you get into this sort of category, you're essentially comparing like, you know, I'm not sort of, you know, downplaying it, but you're essentially comparing like brands. And what I mean by that is you're comparing like Honda Civics to like Toyota Camrys to like Nissan Altimas. It's like I don't really know the difference, just a little bit faster or a little bit cheaper or a little bit. And, but there's also other things, not to sort of downplay, there are a lot of other things that they've done right. Like Solana did tremendous job in terms of like how they executed their hackathons, how they supported high quality NFT artists. Magic Eden, Degenerate Ape Academy really blew up the NFT space for Solana as well. Some of these other things, other chains also kind of latched onto that narrative. And I think, for DeSo, we'll probably see the same kind of thing. There'll be like DeSo and probably like other versions, alternatives of DeSo within that kind of category. But that's kind of, I would say the things that we're learning from Solana and these other is that one, it's incredibly important for us to really have a very clear narrative around our mission. I would say if you look at the DeSo Twitter or the DeSo on-chain handle, it's very, very mission driven. And that goes huge credits to Dylan for, really, crafting our mission and sticking true to that. Because when you look at a lot of these other layer ones, a lot of these other chains, it's not very clear like what purpose they're solving in this world. They're not talking about the unbanked, and they're not talking so much about globalization and more access, or they're mostly, once you're in this category, it's mostly I'm just faster than Ethereum, I'm cheaper and faster to build on or whatever. Whereas DeSo, I think what's really awesome that we're trying to do is like, it's not just a chain, but something that can have a profound impact in a positive way on the world.
Yeah. So talking about all this, how do you plan on marketing to all of these groups?
Yeah.
And when do you expect us to start seeing results of that marketing?
I know that I think it was Nat or mentioned, maybe it was you mentioned that you don't actually like traditional advertising, you don't like buying ads. So what is the best method?
It's not about sort of so let me kind of break that down actually in terms of like the different channels. It's not that I don't like traditional advertising. It's it's really hard in crypto because you'll get banned really easily. Yeah. And two, it's really hard to find the right audiences in some of these channels, and so it's often better to sponsor an ad on like Bankless or something like that, right? Than it is to like trying to like find and target all the like crypto enthusiasts and things like that. So and trying to get them to click on like a landing page or whatever. So I think people are generally kind of skeptical sometimes nowadays when they see like all the crypto ads that are kind of floating around. It's better to, in my opinion, to just be really strategic around how you sort of create brand awareness and where you place that. For institutional investors, I would say, so I'm going to kind of talk about the more tactical things, which is like, what are we trying to do? And it's different, it's not it's not as easy as like do more SEO or write more newsletters. It's really about solving problems and specific problems for all of these different audiences. So for example, for institutional investors, the thing that's going to be really big for them is like, one will be like MegaSwap. With MegaSwap, that's great because now if, they have like, piggy banks in Ethereum or Cardano or Doge or whatever it is, they can easily swap that, right? So they have a non KYC method to, buy, large chunks of DeSo. So that's like one thing that will really help. And another thing is like exchange listings, right? So again, it's not like traditional marketing, right? But it's kind of more on the sort of like biz dev or partnership side of things, which is just like, if we get on Binance or, not Alpha, just, in case anyone's watching, or, FTX or, Gemini and all these other things, right? So, that is going to sort of help with that. So that's why we're, investing in the COO to be able to sort of build out that side to actually get us on, get us listed on these things. The reason why we don't do it internally, like right now, is because the team is mostly full of with like operators and and builders. And we're just, the more we get into this world, the more meetings we're stuck in, and the less we can actually produce, and the less we can actually develop on the protocol and community side of things. And so I think that will really help, right? So for institutional investors, as well as like the website, right? So website, clear mission, all that will really help as well. So again, it's like, it's not, very straightforward in terms of like, here are the things that we're, the marketing initiatives, but here are all the things that will sort of help solve the problems for these different audiences, so that we can reach a benchmark, right? So so that way, once we're at the benchmark, then we don't have to worry about got to get DeSo on Binance, you have to get DeSo on FTX and all these things. We're already there, and then now we just improved and we even make a better experience for that. So that's kind of the tactics for the institutional investors. I would say retail investors is pretty similar. I don't think it's too sort of big difference. I would say maybe one other thing is like, cold wallet support is something that will be, like ledger support or something like that will be more important for these two as well, probably for everyone really. Again,
that would be cool. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of, everything we're doing that will really solve for these two audiences. For end users, for that was just like, have a better onboarding flow, right? So that's kind of what I just released, like a benchmark version of that, probably even below benchmark according to my standards. But it's better than what we had before on DeSo.org, where like, there was like 6 different call to actions. You didn't know what to do. You couldn't explore the ecosystem of apps. So that really helps for end users, as well as just like the websites will help with that, clear mission, that will help for end users. Another thing is, I think that, the verifications and associations, we heard a lot about that, and how do we make sure that, just regular users who are providing value to the platform are being rewarded and appreciated through verifications and associations and just kind of, acknowledgement overall. Another thing is that we're doing for that is just kind of, I would say like ecosystem, growing the ecosystem of apps, NFTs, etc. And the reason why that's helpful is because now that you're not just here to buy some DeSo, but you can actually use it, and there's a whole ecosystem, there's a whole world for you to explore. So that's really important too, right? So that's why, like, the ecosystem page, and I chatted with you guys about finding a way to highlight NFTs and community apps on this as well, something that we'll do in the near future. But expanding that ecosystem, making it so that way you have this one password that can get you access, get you entry into all these different places. For developers, one big thing is developer support and community. So right now, what happens for a lot of developers is they'll like join in the Discord, ask a bunch of questions, and they're really helpful people like Aditya and Zach Mead and a few others, Nathan Wells, who just like kind of actually offer support. But how do we actually make that better? What does the Stack Overflow of DeSo look like? So how do we actually offer more developer support and more advocacy there? Another thing is developer docs and resources. So right now we have like the hub, which I would say it's like, again, if you like look at the hub today, right, it's very bare bones, very simple, but it could be a lot better, right? It could get to here. How do we get it to here? And then expand beyond that. So better developer docs, more resources, things like that, more like tutorials, very easy ways to start building, learn how to run a node. So that's something I'm actually talking to Ty later today to figure out how to do that a lot better. And resources, right? So community support for all the different libraries. So Aditya has the DeSo Pi library, which is awesome. We have the DeSo.js. How do we keep growing that? So that's going to be really impactful for developers. And then for founders, what's going to be important is like, DAO DAO. So it's like, I want to be able to raise money. I want to be able to sort of build my community, things like that. So that is something that is going to get a lot more attention as well. And, make it very easy. So like the USD treasury is the number one thing that we've heard from every single DAO that we've spoken to is like, I want to be able to raise in a stable treasury, but also like community, right? So right now for a lot of founders, they start their projects, but then they run their projects in Discord and they run their projects in Twitter and things like that. But how do we bring community, on chain, right? So with group DMs and stuff like that, it'll be a lot easier for founders to sort of, build a relationship with their audience.
I still think, like, to me, I still think DAO is going to struggle just because of the legalities and the uncertainty about legalities surrounding it.
So we're going to actually release a lot more like documentation and videos around sort of legality. So it's a lot more comfortable for like the onboarding process. I would say like DAO, like we've gotten to like a good benchmark of like what it could do. There's a lot that we need to sort of focus on to sort of, remove the friction point for folks who like want to start a DAO or want to fundraise, but have those like mental hurdles of like, there's a lot of legal issues, or how do I build my community, or how do I incentivize my community the right ways? These are all things that, we're thinking about on a daily basis that will, improve and fix. So it becomes a lot more obvious, a lot more easier to, to start and run your DAO.
Awesome. How about the Octane Fund? Is that just like no longer existing, or could it come back eventually? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it depends how you think about the Octane Fund. I would think about it as like operations versus funds. So like DAO solves for a lot of the operations side. I worked at AngelList. I'm like the first person that will tell you that like don't try to run your own fund. It's like really, really hard. Especially if you're a small team, just like trying to build things, but trying to run a fund is like really, really difficult. It's hard to deploy capital globally. It's hard to deploy capital in crypto. There's a lot of paperwork always involved. It's hard to, measure growth, things like that. You have to wait on, monthly updates, quarterly updates, all that stuff. So DAO really solves for the operational side of that. And then the funds, I think that's more just like a kind of wait and see game. I think that if you look at the macro environment, there's a lot of dry powder kind of sitting around, but I think everyone is just being extra cautious. But I will say, for projects that are really, really promising, can actually show growth and show like consistent sort of engagement and growth. Those will always be sort of attractive to the eye. But in general, I think I think of it as like two separate things. Is that there's like the operational side, which we're mostly focused on for now, so that way we can actually have a scalable way to deploy, an efficient way to deploy capital, which is kind of what DAO solves. And then there are the funds. That's more of like, I think once the CEO gets on board, once we examine the situation, how to sort of build that. I think there are things that we can do around like bounties and like hackathons that I'll get into. Actually, I missed that one for developers.
That's a big one.
So one of the things that we're going to be doing is like a lot more hackathons and bounty type competitions and things like that. So we'll be doing stuff in that area as well. I think that's something really important to me. I think that is really something that can really help grow the ecosystem in a very awesome and fun, engaging way. But yeah, does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah. And how about like events? Like obviously like mainnet. I feel like that really allowed you guys to connect with some important people while also kind of just spreading the word. And like, I think Nader did great speaking, and obviously he doesn't have the time to just travel around to all these events, but maybe other people on the team could. And I almost feel like if they did an event like that every few weeks, just around the globe, pretty much,
like every crypto, every NFT, every blockchain event, if DeSo was there, if they had a booth, if they had a speaker, whether it be Nader, whether it be you, whether it be the COO or somebody hired specifically for these events, I think that would do wonders for the marketing.
Absolutely. I can't tell you the amount of times, like within, the amount of times people came up to our booth at the mainnet event And we're just like, oh yeah, I heard about DeSo. What is it? And then within like 30 or 45 seconds of just explaining DeSo, they were like completely bullish about it. And they were like bringing other people along. And as soon as Nader got off stage, he was like crowded by like tons of developers and people who wanted to learn more. So I think it's very effective. But to your point, right? It's the more we do that internal, like for like Nader or myself, the less we're focused on all the growth kind of stuff. So where I would sort of bucket that is more like what I would call like Topher top of funnel, which is like spread awareness. And I think that is something that's another sort of part of this that I didn't get to, which I was going to mention after this, which is like kind of precedes and benefits all of this. It's almost like it should be like all the way up here, basically. It's like the thing that sort of creates awareness amongst all these audiences. But that's everything from events and we're doing. You'll see like there's foundations for all of this, right? So we did our first event. We hired Jacob to do our YouTube content creation. Dylan's doing a phenomenal job at social media side of things. We're doing more PR. So there's a lot of different things around like the traditional kind of marketing space that we're doing that it's mostly sort of building awareness. And it's mostly sort of something that benefits all of these different audiences. Again, it's a very similar kind of picture where it's like we're doing a little bit of all of them, some PR, some social or whatever. We got to get to a benchmark. We got to get to a regular cadence of like, cranking out YouTube content all the time, cranking out, more presence in events. We're just kind of filling the cups, little by little, but we have like good foundations for a lot of this stuff now. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's something that, we're definitely doing. And it's something that benefits all the kind of growth, top of funnel, or the growth kind of middle funnel, end of funnel type of stuff. And then for creators, I would say like creators, what's really important is, more apps. So growing the ecosystem, continuing to do that. But also like more primitives, right? So the things that we hear a lot is I want to be able to gate my content and have private content. So that way I can sell an NFT. And if you own the NFT, you get early whitelist access or something like that to like, a specific set of content or whatever. Or like paid DMs and stuff. There's a lot of different things that we can still do there. Be able to email your subscribers. So for creators, that's what's going to be really, really important. It's going to be, giving them the tools and the options to be able to sort of build and monetize a relationship with their audience and in a full ownership way. And for partners, I would say the first thing we're doing here is just like kind of see how actually the events really help with this because it gets, that's kind of what a lot of purpose for the events are.
What would your definition of partners be, or an example of a partner would be?
I would think of them as like integrations. So like integrating with things like NFT marketplaces, like a OpenSea or like a Rarible or a Foundation or whatever. I would say other partnerships as well, like more like I think there are more things that we could be doing to leverage like the Web2 creator economy. I think everything that Robert Graham is doing with Afterparty, how to create more partnerships there where you have tremendous amount of reach with a lot of influence, a lot of creators who want to be able to sort of build their audience outside of the kind of Web2 bubble. So there are a lot of different things that we could be doing. I think partners kind of expand this entire spectrum. Actually, there are partnerships that we could be doing with like where like founders hang, like Y Combinator, if they're or like on deck where they have like cohorts of like Web3 founders and things like that. How do we have partnerships with them so that way we can pipe deal flow into DAO and stuff like that. So I think,
are there any thoughts given to, let's say, I guess there's fall more under creators, but let's say partnering with some top influencers, maybe give them some sort of contract, a year contract to, you need this many posts and kind of try and bring some of your followers over. Is there any talks about doing something like that?
There's like ideas always kicking around, and that's like an idea that's always kicking around. There isn't like active talks happening of like, we're going to do this right now or sooner or later. I think we'll assess it once the COO gets on board. it'll basically be a similar exercise where we have to prioritize all these different audiences and figure out sort of like, what is the ideal partnership? Do we go after brands first? Do we go after influencers first? Do we go after, and they all have different problems, right? Like I've spoken to some brands, and some brands were, like I spoke into Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. I spoke to his team. You know, he ended up going with DeSo's because DeSo's was environmentally friendly. And they were just like, oh, I don't want to associate my brand with proof of work blockchain. So that, you know, there's a lot of sort of, conversations to be had, and a lot of different problems for all these different audiences. Go after brands. You can go after, for influencers. A lot of times it's just like, I just want really good apps. I want like good mobile apps, because the status quo is a lot better in terms of the actual user experience, right? It's really hard to compete there. We don't have like a good like iOS or mobile
That's a good
ecosystem.
point.
So there's all these different problems. I think it's mostly just like, we're gonna have to go through that exercise of figuring out where to place our strategic bets, where we want to experiment, where we want to invest in. And I think most of that will be like when the COO gets on board and starts to build out that side of the organization.
Talking about the COO, can you tell us any more about that? Like when will the community learn who the COO is? And I know that Nader said that his main role is going to be reaching out for partnerships, reaching out to investors, and hiring some people. Like how many people should we expect will come onto the DeSo Foundation after the COO hiring? Is it like a couple, 2 or 3 or so, or is it more than that?
Yeah, two good questions. I can't give too much detail on the COO other than starting, I think, end of this month or later in this month. I don't know the exact date. So it's very soon. We'll have announcements around it. We're not going to keep it a secret. It's just it's sensitive because it's an executive or C-level hire, right? You can't give too much details about those things. But I would say the person that is hired has a lot of experience in the partnerships area. I can give that much detail. As well as like, making sure that they're, building really strong relationships with like institutional investors and things like that, and making sure that, all the progress and all that stuff is being updated. But we'll have good clarity on that in the next couple of weeks.
I'd be interested to know how much control the COO is going to have as well.
What do you mean?
How much does he have to go to Nader for everything to get everything approved? Like how much leeway is he going to have to make decisions on his own without checking in with the core team or checking in with Nader?
I would say like we're not a like super top down organization. Like we're very like Nader is like very collaborative. It's like involved in so much decision making. Everyone has power to make decisions as long as you have the data points and the insights to back it up, and always find compromises. I think that's kind of how we work. I would say the team works probably the most collaboratively I've ever seen in a startup. Everyone on the team is like A++ players. So I think the COO will be an A++ player. I think the relationships, it's less about control. It's more about how do we work together to sort of prioritize, the biggest bang for our buck in the sort of with the signals that we have in the time period that we're focused on. I think that's ultimately what matters. And that's not like a political answer. That's more just like, I think like the type of people that we want on the team, the type of people that we want on board are people who can work in a very collaborative way where, we can sort of, focus on the highest impact things that
makes sense.
Build towards.
Yeah. So I don't mean to cut you off. So I've been talking to some OGs that like some of them are investors, some of them are just OGs who have been around building on DeSo for a while. And some of the criticism I hear from them is that DeSo is being too conservative with their treasury. They have a lot of money. They should be hiring more. They should be marketing more. They should be just spending more to grow things as fast as possible. What would you say to them?
I would say just have patience. I'm a startup guy. I'm the first person also that'll tell you like it takes 5 to 7 years to build anything where it's like meaningful, and it takes 10 years for that meaning to be really actually realized by the mass. And even if you're sitting on a large treasury, I've seen a lot of startups in my past, and I'll stop sharing my screen here because I think a little bit up on time. I've seen a lot of startups in my past who, found something that they thought that worked really, really early on, and they just hired a ton of people, and it's very unsustainable when you do that, and you don't actually really understand, especially if you don't have product market fit, you haven't run enough experiments to actually find what's working and figure out like how to scale it in a sustainable way. For example, if BitClout, when that launched and that got a ton of users, if the team like started hiring like hundreds of people with their treasury, that would be a very scary move. When in reality, and I wrote this in that really long doc that I wrote to you guys once, is like in reality, like if that were to happen, we probably would have to lay off like multiple of them, or like a large percentage of them, right? And I mentioned that in March when I wrote that. And then what did we see in the last
like Coinbase
couple
and
months?
Crypto.com.
Crypto.com. Yeah, they're all just, just constant layoffs. Because what happens is people get super excited and then they just hire a ton of people and they start spending all this money on, rebranding the Staples Center and doing all these partnerships. And like none of that really pays off, especially when in a macro like this where it's like completely uncertain. So I think as long as it's done strategically, and another thing is I think as long as we do it in a way where we retain the culture of the team, and because that's really, really important at this early stage, and where we can all have, equal size and outsized impact. I think that's mostly important. In terms of the treasury, like, yeah, we can go out and just like, start running tons of ads. That isn't the main goal. The first goal is to experiment. And I think a lot of times that people, who see a lot of crypto startups, just because you're a crypto startup, you're not excused from the laws of a startup. You should still be experimenting as much as you can. You should still be taking risks. You should still be placing bets. You should still be collecting signal as much as you can, and sifting through the noise. And the hard thing is that you're kind of doing that all in the public. So if an experiment goes wrong, you get criticized, and you're a scam and a failure for that. So it's like you have to balance all of that as well. Which is really, really difficult. So, I would say what's more important is just like for the team is to just like identify all the different audiences, all the different problems, stay true to the mission and vision, and then, experiment along the way, see what works. If it doesn't work, you kill it. If it does work, you double down on it, as, a startup should be run. And that's ultimately what matters. So it's not that, we're just kind of sitting on the treasury. It's more just like, we are serving a lot of different audiences. We are doing a lot of different things. We are experimenting. We just have to find out what works. And once we do find out what works, we will double down on it, right? We'll find, once you have that formula, once you have that playbook, and it starts to sort of write itself, then, you just kind of continue to grow that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I want to thank you, Ed. I want to thank you for coming on our show. And I mean, your explanation of where DeSo is heading I think is a good one. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about it. Any final thoughts?
Any alpha you can drop?
Alpha. No.
No pressure.
No alpha. Wormels, awesome. Wormels has an awesome drop. Shout out to Layla for doing that. I think it's awesome to see that grow. I think just like all the awesome things that the community is doing, I think is just great. The more, I love seeing more people build, more people, create and engage. So no alpha, nothing super exciting. Most of the stuff this was hopefully just to kind of give everyone a high level view of like how we think about things. And, it's not that, we don't prioritize, it's not that we don't care about one specific audience. It's just have to sort of kind of fluctuate the prioritization in real time on a global basis, which, can be difficult. So I hope that was kind of clear for a lot of folks. And I'm going to try to spend a lot more time to kind of, writing a little bit more about this type of stuff. And now that, we have more of a long form blogging standard, but yeah, I'm excited to, just continue, keep going.
All right, well, thanks again, Ed. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you on again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm going to come back as a co-host though.
There you go. Sure. We can get rid of Brian, and it can be the Ed Show, the Ed Squared Show.
I think we can get rid of the Ed and replace him with the other Ed. How about that?
I call him OG Ed. Yeah,
OGA.
we'll always be OGS.
All right. Well,
Hi,
thanks
fellas.
again. Thanks again to Ed Moss. You can follow him on DeSo at Mossified. He's a great interview. He's so compassionate about DeSo, so compassionate about what he's doing, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So it was great to have
Yeah.
him on our show.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be our longest show we've probably ever done, but it was definitely informative. And speaking of our show, I just want to give a shout out to Goldberry, who is now an unofficial intern of the Krassenstein Show. Goldberry always emails us with news that she seems to find before most other people. So thanks, Goldberry. And continuing along the lines of our YouTube show, we just actually got our 1000th subscriber. So it took 565 days, but we got subscriber number 1004 just recently. Hit this big milestone. Thanks to the amazing community for your support in following our channel. If you aren't subscribed, please do so. And we always try to give the best news. Web3, we concentrate on mostly on DeSo because we're obsessed with DeSo. But try and like and comment on our videos whenever you can, because that helps boost them. And when they're boosted, more people find out about DeSo. And of course, we're a little bit selfish. We get more followers and kind of build the channel up. But
Yeah,
thanks again, and thanks to Goldberry.
I think 1,004 subscribers in 565 days is pretty pathetic, but we're getting there. I think it was Zer1, ZER1, who was actually our 1,000th follower. So thank you, Zer1. Hopefully, we have another 10,000 followers next year.
Yeah, exactly. So what has Natter been posting? Some big news, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, Natter's made several very interesting posts in the last day. He made a post showing a chart of DeSo's daily active accounts, and he discussed how it shows that daily active accounts on DeSo have 3x'd month over month, which I think is incredible. I think that's a huge growth. That's huge growth. He then followed that up by saying, quote, "And we haven't even made our most exciting announcements yet." So that gets me super excited. He also responded to a post by R.R. Hoover, who's a DeSo OG who has come back to ask a question. He asked Natter, how are people hearing about DeSo? So he outlined several contributing factors in a reply to R.R. Hoover. He said the updated website on Friday led to people who Googled DeSo finding excitement and sharing that excitement. So people have, when they Google DeSo, they now get this new website that really explains things. He suggested that everybody should go to Google, search for DeSo, and then follow the path that a normal user would take in the flow. So see what would happen if you Google DeSo and then kind of just click on what would be the most common sense things to click on. And it goes pretty well. That flow goes pretty well. The funnel is so much better. The flow is so much better. I think Mossified is owed a huge credit for that. They also published and publicized the roadmap last week, which I think a lot of people on DeSo were super excited about. But he also said he thinks it's made the rounds with several major crypto players, and that kind of goes viral. He said the marketing team did a great job at putting together the PR about MetaMask, so all these Ethereum people can now easily sign on to DeSo. And he said that the PR resulted in an article on Cointelegraph and articles elsewhere as well. And finally, he said that he thinks Elon Musk's and Jack Dorsey's post on social media, as well as some of their actions, show the importance for the need of a decentralized social media.
Yeah, speaking of Jack Dorsey, we haven't heard about Web 5 recently. That was a big announcement several months ago, and then they were supposed to be rolling out APIs, and nothing ever came. So that's interesting. But moving on, what else did Natter say?
Yeah, so he made a post about NFT transactions, and I found this really, really interesting. He brought up a chart of the top NFT top blockchains with NFT transactions, and then he looked at DeSo's NFT transactions per day, which stands at about 20,000. And according to Natter, this 20,000 and this chart, DeSo falls in number 3 behind only Solana and Immutable X as far as NFT transactions per day. And that positions DeSo ahead of Ethereum. This is just a short-term chart, just, short-term and everything, but that's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And then he made a post and he linked the NFT activity on DeSo to the launch of Cyberpunk Apes, which of course is it's a Dia and Nathan Wells project where they're giving away a bunch of free Cyberpunk Apes. And he also linked it to the release of the new NFTZ website, which of course we did. We're part of it along with Martijn Boss and Wouter van Halen. Uh, Thank you. I super really appreciate that. And also he basically the post read, I'm going to just tell you what the post said. It said, "Oh wow, just realized NFT activity on DeSo is at an all-time high with over 10x month-over-month growth in the NFT bear market. Seems to coincide with the launch of NFTZ.me and Cyberpunk Apes." And like I said, Nathan Wells and It's Aditya, they deserve so much credit for this because they're the ones that are really bringing on a lot of people from Twitter. Like I'm talking thousands of new people that are interested in NFTs, which is huge. And that's helping NFTZ, of course, but we're also trying to do our part as well. The project by the Cyberpunk Apes project, it definitely brought people here. And also noteworthy is that NFTZ has been seeing a large influx of new traffic and new users. So this is super exciting for us. I mean, we've seen double the traffic just in the last couple of days. And I credit a lot of that to the Cyberpunk Apes, but also DeSo in general for providing us the tools that we can use to create this new atmosphere around NFTZs. Of course, our timed auctions are becoming quite popular as well.
Yeah, and we had to update our servers because of the huge spike in traffic, so that's a good sign. I also want to welcome Zach Seward to DeSo. So Zach Seward is a contributing editor at CoinDesk, but according to Natter, he's also the reason they were able to get a speaking spot at Masari Mainnet back on September 23rd. So welcome aboard, Zach Seward. Hopefully partake in the DeSo blockchain. And I
Yeah,
want to speaking of cyberpunk apes, I want to congratulate HLY888 because he won the one of one cyberpunk apes number 10. I can't wait to see if he puts this up for auction. It'll be awesome if he does a live auction on NFTZ. I don't know how much this is going to get because every other cyberpunk apes number 1 through 9, there's 1,000 of them, but number 10 there's only one. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this user puts it up for auction, how much it brings in.
Yeah, so what is the social world introducing now?
So DeSocial World has introduced new notification icons, and they've also eased the use of notifications. So they now have direct access to settings, no need to click the three dots first, visual access to choices instead of text through those icons. No confirmation is required anymore when switching to and from expanded view. Tooltips showing the meaning of icons, long press on mobile, and colors indicating which icons you selected. So check that out. DeSocial World constantly iterating. Edo and team have been doing an awesome job.
Yeah,
And then
I love what they're doing.
Set2 DeSo also has introduced something called Treats of the Season. So if you try out Set2 at web3setu, setu.com, and you subscribe on their website, you're going to be able to get you're going to become eligible for 500 free diamonds. So your next 250 posts will get diamonded and you'll accumulate 500 diamonds from them. Awesome idea, and keep it up, Set2 DeSo. Click on the link above this video and you can find out more.
Yeah, and then CloutRocks, another NFT project that's launching soon. Actually, on November 1st, they're launching a project called Brutes. And there's going to be 500 generative Brutes minted. There's more to this, though. There's a competition where the first, which will be the first of three, and if you repost and like their post on DeSo, which is linked to above this video on DeSo, below it on YouTube, you can be entered into a raffle for 5 free skips. So when you're minting, you can skip 5 times and hopefully get a better one since it's generative. The project's run by DeSo OG's James Barrett, who's one of the creators of DeSomon, of course. and Devin Flair. But definitely check them out. I'm excited. November 1st is a big date for that launch.
Yeah, so as many of you know, NFTZ.me is the only place where you can currently post and view live auctions on the DeSo blockchain. If you go to NFTZ.me/auctions, you can see all of those live auctions that are ending in the next 7 days. Here are some of the ones ending in the next 24 hours. Thought I'd highlight some of them. The WAGME NFT, we are going to make it by the WAGME and a DeSocial World NFT by Roland Sayadov. Both end at 11:40 a.m. Eastern Time today. The Shell and Beads NFT created in AI by Hack and AI. That ends at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Volpe number 8 by DFOC. He has a new live auction every day. Ends at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There's currently a bidding war on that one between Apertures and Slava, it appears. X Rabbit number 123 is being auctioned by Shady Acres, and that ends at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Non-Fungible World NFT, we talked about them just yesterday. The non-fungible cactus it's being auctioned by Shady Acres as well, and it ends at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then there's several NFTs from the Angry Penguin series by NFT Messiah, which end this evening around 10 p.m. or so. So definitely check those out at nftz.me/auctions.
Yeah, and I want to quickly get to the top NFT bidders on the DeSo blockchain over the last 24 hours, thanks to the list at NFTZ. And these people bid on the most NFTs on the DeSo blockchain the last day. Ambitious Lynch was number 1, followed by LSM127, followed by HLY888, followed by Apertures, Vishnu Sularin, David J. Ryder, Shaw26NK, Baron Rouge, RS Crypto, and Diego Robot. And the top diamond creators over the last 24 hours, thanks to our friends at Altum Base. These people received the most diamonds or tips on their post and replies on the DeSo blockchain in the last day. Dead Metal, followed by NFT Messiah, Natter, D1V1N3, which is divine but spelled with numbers, Cyberpunk Apes, which we just spoke about, Krasenstein, which of course is us, Manrik Photo, Diego Robot, Wormels, another great NFT series, and Illuminati, an NFT OG.
Yeah, today's events concerning DeSo, provided once again by Miss Katie Ann. 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time is Web3 Wednesdays with Caleb and Sean Tron on Entra. 2 p.m. Eastern Time is Tech and Web3 Legal Office Hours with Francesca Witzberg and Sean Tron, as well as CEO of Entra, Michael Myra, also on Entra. 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Entra is Tech and Web3 Virtual Job Fair with Sean Tron. At 7 p.m. Eastern Time is Web3 Pills NFT Wednesday on Twitter with Alex Valetis, former DeSo Core Team Member. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time is Web3 Weekly Digest on Entra with Mark Angelos. And I want to welcome back some people who have been gone from DeSo for over 30 days who have come back to take an action or multiple actions on the DeSo blockchain in the last day. Grant Cardone, super popular guy, super huge following outside of DeSo. He came back. I think that's awesome news. Veronica Rajek, another DeSo OG who's come back, who has a huge following outside of DeSo, I think on TikTok and Instagram. Alex Torelli, I love this guy. I remember him back in the day. We used to chat with him all the time. James Beshara, Skin Lover, Xander Toshi, Nacho Average, Clay Perry Music and Wendy Lee and that whole group of people running Nacho Average. Rhodes, BitClout Kids, which is an NFT project run by us, and CloutViz. So that's all of the news that we have for today. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Sorry for the long video. I hope it piqued your interest. There's a lot of good information, I think, in this video. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and have a great day.